You're listening to Rainbow Wisdom Radio with your host, Brad Johnson, on the Enlightenment Evolution Network. Enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Rainbow Wisdom Radio. I am your host, Brad Johnson, and thank you so much for joining me here on Blog Talk Radio, or more specifically, the Enlightenment Evolution Network. So I'm very much looking forward to today's broadcast. This is the first time I've been back on radio in a few months. I had a previous radio show called The Expansion Point, which is actually kind of funny because I'm actually working in making that a TV series that's coming up here pretty soon. And working alongside with that with a few other good friends of mine who are also on this network, which is Rob Gauthier, Kalina Angel, and also Victoria Vivas. So we're also working together to get a particular TV show going here. An online or internet TV show would be more appropriate. But I want to thank each and every one of you for being here on the broadcast today, for tuning in, or if you're listening to this through recording, welcome as well. So today, Rainbow Wisdom Radio was all about the book that I have done just a few months ago, called Rainbow Wisdom: Guide to Unlocking Your Reality Spectrum. And being able to call it Rainbow Wisdom Radio just seemed appropriate. The book that I've done has really been quite successful. It's been selling quite a few copies, both locally and online with it, and it's done really well. So I thought, Rainbow Wisdom Radio would be the very appropriate title for this particular broadcast. And Rob Gauthier was actually telling me when he was first getting this network started, there was an offer for me to come on the show and start my own radio show at that time. And unfortunately, I had to turn him down at the time because there was just a lot of other things that were going on. I was kind of looking into some other things, a lot of projects that were kind of on the go. And then I just got back to him a few weeks ago and just said, you know what, I think now is the time. And I was always saying that, we'll see what the future holds, but in the past it just didn't fit. But right now, the keys fit. The synchronicity comes together, and here is the radio show here through the airwaves. So again, really, really excited about today's broadcast. The Rainbow Wisdom Radio broadcast is going to be every 2 weeks. So after this one, then we'll be starting again 2 weeks from today and coming up with the next episode. So it'll be a bi-weekly broadcast, and this is just because I'm getting busier and busier. So, but I want to try and get some really good topics going for Rainbow Wisdom Radio throughout the particular topics and the particular shows that are going to be coming within the weeks ahead. So today is all going to be about the Earth experiment, looking into the addition of mankind's, the addition of mankind, the equation that they represent being here on this planet. What we're also going to be doing here is around the latter half of the show, we're going to be taking some calls, and I will be channeling the entity known as Adronis. So for those of you who already follow my work, you may already be aware of who Adronis is. For those of you who have never heard of Adronis before, well, basically this represents an aspect of my higher self. Rob Gauthier, again, who runs the Enlightenment Evolution Network, channels beings known as Treb, or with Aradif as well too. This is basically a version of that I bring forward as well, known as Adronis. And so he'll be coming in around the later part of the show. And so I'll be happy to get any particular types of call-ins. If anybody would like to call in around the latter half of the show, you certainly can. The phone number is 347-215-8586. That's 347-215-8586. All right, so we're now going to go ahead and begin today's broadcast on the Earth experiment. Well, why was man brought to this planet? Why are we here? Again, this has always been the big philosopher's discussion since the time of our own inception. How did we get on this planet? Why are we brought here? What's the whole purpose of us being on here? Well, Earth herself, firstly, is a very, very interesting planet, and she has been through a lot of different forms of experiments in the past. Everything really represents the state of cycles and the point that something ends and something new begins. And that through a lot of the earlier times of the inception, Earth herself was basically in the type of preparation mode to allow humanity to come forward onto its surface, representing a particular type of density medium that would allow us to come here on this planet and to co-create in this particular way. Now, every planet usually goes through this. I'd say about 9 times out of 10, from a lot of the information that I've received through channeling and through, universal mind connection. A lot of particular planets go through these particular phases where they go through certain forms of evolutionary cycles, where they start to firstly formulate the idea of the first density, which represents that of the elements, really being able to work together in equilibrium for the elements of the planet to sustain life. Once that particular form of graduation has taken place, then there is what's known as the second density integration. The second density represents that of plant, mineral, animal life that, again, starts to culminate itself onto the planet. This is why, again, we've had such earlier forms of dinosaurs and all different types of prehistoric animals on this planet, is because that was the particular type of alignment for the Earth to be in order for her to create equilibrium in regards to a second density graduation. And then when you move into the third density graduation, now you have the idea of what we would refer to as sentient or self-aware based life. And this was simply the time to where humanity itself was able to come upon the planet, because it was all part of what the Earth required pertaining to its energetic efficient configuration. So it needed to have human beings brought upon this planet to work together in that type of graduation as she works more into graduation in herself to becoming more of a more advanced planet, more deeper of an advanced planet. So humanity was brought here on this planet through the idea of other particular forms of ancestors that have been from beyond the stars. Now, humanity itself has originated within the constellation known as Lyra. That's where all human life began, starting billions and billions of years ago. We all came from that particular form of star constellation. And this was where we were basically associating with other types of Earth-like planets, that we had other Earth-like planets. It was very agricultural, it was very rich in community and unification, and that it was just simply a time in regards to the cosmic cycle for humanity to spread itself out, to spread its wings, and to start graduating into different degrees of planets that were now getting into an initiatory phase of actually being able to house humans. So it's all part of like an evolving body. Our body needs certain forms of organs. It needs blood to pump. It needs everything pertaining to its own systems within itself in order to function properly. And so it represents a state of graduation. Just from when we become an embryo, then we start growing deeper and deeper into the fetus, and then eventually we become a newborn baby. Well, the same thing has to happen with the planet. So, again, as all of these particular forms of planets begin to evolve, they will require first, second, third density life in order for them to thrive. It's all part of their cellular makeup, in a way of speaking, part of their organs that are transplanting into their body. In a way, that's a good analogy to utilize as well. And how we were created was that we were basically created through the means of different forms of human subraces that came together, that were from other worlds, and they were utilizing this particular planet as the seed to procreate this particular subrace that represented ourselves, and that we have the DNA of 22 different forms of human extraterrestrials contained within our DNA. And so being able to do this, we were going through many different forms of versions, different cycles of human beings that were coming upon the planet, starting from what we would know as a primitive Neanderthal, and then being able to move into different forms of versions of ourselves, leading us into what we are today. But because we have this immense genetic soup, as it were, pertaining to who we are as human beings, this is what really moved us in kind of a unique approach. It wasn't so much about being able to just create another human subrace. It was more so in the idea of the importance that humanity would serve as a universal vessel, which means it would actually be easier for the soul to incarnate as a universal human template that represents our genome. And this is in that sense why we have been getting a lot of attention on this planet for thousands upon thousands of years by many other different beings. We can see it throughout all of our ancient cultures. We can see it moving all the way back to the times of ancient Mu, of Lemuria, of Atlantis, of Egypt, of the Inca, of Mesopotamia, of Sumeria, you name it. All of these different forms of cultures have all been sharing basically the same type of information, just in their own different cultural ways. So this has really been how humanity itself has grown, and how it's even been able to admit to itself that we have had visitors from many different worlds that have come here and have worked together with the human genetics and helping to tweak us in a certain way so that we are able to function in many different ways. But because in the past, when we're looking at the times of ancient Mu and moving into the times of Atlantis and seeing exactly what kind of technology we could create in Atlantis, there was a time for humanity to be held back, because a lot of these particular gifts that were given to man out of love were starting to become corrupted in regards to domination. We're feeling that there needed to be some type of takeover, that there needed to be some type of hierarchy or kingdom that represented rule. And a lot of these particular gifts that were given to man out of love were now starting to become abused. And wars were starting to happen. And of course, there was a lot of different hybridization experiments as well, too, being able to create other particular forms of animals of mixed races, as biological weapons, and all kinds of different things that were just, not too appealing to really look at too much. So there really has had to be a particular form of intervention that took place that actually restricted the human genetics. And we may understand this very commonly as once operating with 12 strands of DNA and moving down into a double-strand helix of DNA. Was this a punishment? Well, that depends on one person's point of view. That really all depends. It was basically that a lot of things had to be shut down because humanity was given a lot of these things very quickly in regards to love. Because again, many of the, you could refer to them as the Elohim or anything else of that nature, many of the particular beings that were helping to bring humanity into being wanted to give so much of them too soon, because they really saw us as just a beautiful creation. They saw us as just being this immense, incredible universal vessel that so many different beings from so many different galaxies and so many different realms and different planets, etc., could come here and incarnate in the body, no matter of their particular forms of karmic debris that they carry with them. That's basically what it means to have a karmic, or I should say, a universal body, despite karmic debris that's there. In certain forms of star systems, again, from what I've received from channeling and other different forms of communication with universal mind, in other star systems, it really depends in regards to the type of karma that you carry in order for you to actually incarnate on those particular types of worlds, which means some worlds don't want you. If you feel that you've been really, hanging around the lower astral realms for quite some time, you've been like a homicidal murderer, or you've all been into greed, etc., there are many different star systems that won't even look at you. And if you want to basically go through a sojourn and attempt to incarnate on the planet, they'll say, no, don't want you. You're not in the energy, you're not in the vibration to enter the soul queue, as it were, or the incarnational queue here for you to incarnate on our world. Beat it, right? That's basically a lot of the particular forms of rules contained in many different types of star systems and planets. Earth was a completely different aspect. Hey, it's all right. You got some karmic debris here. That's all right. Come and incarnate here. Let's see what you got. Let's see what you can do, right? That was basically what makes Earth different from a lot of other different planets out there, was that it was very, very lenient at a particular time to actually allow certain forms of beings to incarnate on their planet despite the karmic debris that they placed upon themselves, that they actually had embedded within themselves. And so a lot of these particular beings were able to come through. It was all part of the universal design, simply because there are so many different volunteer races to assist in humanity, and saying that, well, if we're going to help to create this new species of man, we want to be involved. We want to be able to be part of the experiment as well, too, to be able to incarnate on this planet. And so it was agreed that, again, this was a free will world, and that people would actually be able to come through despite their differences, despite the energies that they carried within themselves, to begin this type of new era that was coming forward. And because we had so many different types of beings from all over the place, from all over the universe, from every corner that you can imagine, so to speak, this is where really what eventually caused a lot of upheaval. This is what caused a lot of polarities, because we were all being brought forward from different experiences, from different types of polarities, different realms of consciousness, etc., lower astral planes, higher astral planes, and we were all just basically being a smorgasbord, for actually incarnating upon this planet. And that was all the reason, because there was the ultimate state of unification. This is what Earth wanted to represent, that all particular forms of co-creators that came upon this planet would have the opportunity to make Earth a unified planet, to actually have multiculturalism, to have many different forms of sub-races of humans, again, that were created from many different forms of other human sub-races that would come here. This is why we have, the Caucasian, the Asian, the Black, the African, the Arab, the Indian, etc. All of these are just different forms of sub-races coming from different stars that represented humanoid life, and that they crisscrossed genetics, and they basically had other particular forms of races that came upon this planet at appropriate times that often functioned together in appropriation with certain forms of climatic zones on the planet. So this is exactly how we all came to be. Eventually, the Caucasians were actually the very last, of course, to come here on the planet. They could also be referred to in that sense as Aryans in that way. A lot of the Caucasian energy really came from Mars. It came from Maldek. It came from Orion. It came from Sirius. It came from the Pleiades. So there are quite a few different types, archetypes altogether, pertaining to the Caucasian races. And again, firstly starting in Maldek, which is the planet that is now the asteroid belt in our star system, and then migrating to Mars, and then from Mars coming onto Earth. So again, we have many different types of sub-races that really wanted to get involved, and that Earth was all about saying that no matter where you guys come from, no matter where you are, let's work together. Let's be a unified world. Let's have a unified culture of many different seeds, so to speak, of human beings to come here and work together. And unfortunately, that just did not happen. There was just too much forms of polarities in many different ways that became stretched out and created this particular type of discord that related to this type of downfall, where a lot of things that were given to man out of love and out of appreciation, saying this is what's going to further the culture. And it was not even really conceived that any particular type of energy relating to human beings that would utilize this for devious ends. So unfortunately, this is what happened, and this is what led to what's known as the Atlantean disaster, being able to have this immensely tragic form of probably the worst disaster in Earth's history, representing the idea of weaponizing a lot of these particular forms of technologies throughout hundreds or even thousands of years of being able to, again, receive these as gifts, and being able to have people who wanted so much control, who wanted to see themselves to be gods amongst men. Now, again, it wasn't just humanity that really got involved with this. There were a lot of other particular forms of extraterrestrial races, human ETs, that came to the planet and were basically seduced by the women. The women themselves were just so beautiful, and so they wanted to come to the planet and they wanted to breed with them. And, this was like the ultimate taboo. And so this was, again, leading to certain forms of power struggles, that a lot of them wanted to come down to the planet. They would basically, quote unquote, bribe the king with a lot of different forms of technology and say them, and they would offer them their daughters or anything else like that. And this is what created a lot of discord as well. A lot of particular forms of beings in that way, amusingly, who couldn't keep it in their pants, had to come down here and do a lot of this fornication, so to speak, with a lot of the Earth women. And this was not permissible. And this is, again, what led more into Atlantis' downfall. And, again, a lot more of the destruction of a lot of different forms of civilizations that have come and gone. And this has all been part of particular greed. Many people who feel that they just want power. Oh, my goodness, I'm favored by the gods. Now all I have to do is offer somebody for them, do exactly what they say, give them exactly what they want, and then I'll be able to see myself as a god among men. And that's where, again, we've had the rise and falls of emperors and kings coming throughout the entire, span of our history. And we're still seeing it nowadays in certain ways as well too. So this is basically how the life lessons that start individually and collectively are still attempting to cycle themselves through. So how many times do we have to continue to learn this before we realize this is not the way to go? This is not the way to unification. But this is basically what has led to certain forms of past resets. This is representing the idea that Earth herself has gone through certain forms of master resets that firstly represented other particular beings that came in and started to modify the genetic sequences pertaining to the human DNA, again, from a 12-strand DNA helix to a 2-strand or double helix DNA system. And this was all part of the restriction process. And it was shortly after this as well, too, that a whole new moon came into our star system and came upon Earth and was kept in orbit. Simply because this is what is basically keeping everything kind of like the glue together pertaining to what we are learning as a species. And the best way for a person in that sense who you may feel have been like spoiled rich and everything, how do you really teach a person who has had that greed and who's had those riches and has had all of that wealth? How do you teach them to really look into humility? You strip them of everything they have until they feel they have nothing. And then they basically have to work to break themselves down to build themselves back up again. And that's been our journey. That has really what has happened to humanity throughout many different forms of cultures and civilizations that have come and gone. You have to strip down the rich and make them feel that they're now going to be impoverished, that they have to be with the people. And this basically represents a lot of our abilities, where everything is really just starting to move into physical reality. Starting to change form a lot more now. But in the times past, it was really just feeling that, we went through some very, very dark ages because we were being stripped down. We were not able to instantaneously manifest. We were not able to really have that very strong, noticeable form of telepathy. It was very, very rare to actually see people having that kind of telepathy and all of that, because anybody that would really try to admit that, would often be heralded as witches or, warlocks, etc., and be burned at the stake. So it certainly has started to come back into fruition now for the past several decades. But throughout all those times before, it was just being stripped away because we needed to learn exactly the hard way, so to speak, about how we could really start to humble ourselves by looking more into the physical plane, eventually go through all these dark connections with ourselves, working together with the shadow, so that eventually we could move into a harmonious culture. We are going in that particular direction, even though it feels at times and saying, well, you know what, things are really starting to heat up here on planet Earth. There's a lot of things going on. We got all different types of natural disasters coming. We still have a lot of infighting, a lot of religious wars. We still have all this fighting overseas, etc. Yeah, absolutely, because this is basically, in the best way to put it, us getting it out of our system. That we need to see the most intense extremes possible that we can actually do to realize we're not going to do them anymore. Not only is this going to be something that's going to potentially benefit ourselves, but this is something that actually is something that we're going to work with to connect with other particular forms of races eventually down the road when we become more starbound and we actually connect with other particular races. And this is what creates some of the most incredible teachers, The most incredible kind of teachers you can see are the ones who have broken themselves down and built themselves back up. And that's really what we're doing as a collective species here as humanity. So I know that there are some calls that are coming in to the switchboard here. So we're going to be getting to calls here in just a few minutes. And of course, Adronis is going to be coming here in a few minutes as well too. But really just looking into our modernized momentum here and saying, well, where is it that we're going? It feels like we're becoming very, very technological. We're becoming kind of technocratic, and we're going through all these technologies. Is this really what's going to leave humanity and just to becoming a very, very technocratic race? Not at all. And the reason I say this is because this is no different than an era to where we had swords and bows, an era where we lived in huts and then eventually started to move into, building hut cabins and houses, etc. It's a process that we go through. But again, we will see the extremes of where technology takes us to realize we no longer need it. And that's really why there is a very strong spiritual movement coming in together as much as there is a technocratic movement, really. That's the whole key. It's just that spirituality in regards to what we are capable of as spiritual beings it really doesn't want to get the mainstream media spotlight because that represents a state of empowerment. But there will eventually be a time to where that will open up a lot more in the mainstream. And we're getting closer to that time. In fact, within the next 5 to 10 years, it will actually be pretty common to see a lot of different forms of consciousness-enhancing education, a lot of particular forms of mainstream media in that sense, to actually start moving into the peak of a lot of spiritual upbringing and working together into more of the spiritual aspects. That is coming. That time is moving ahead. And even with a lot of the new generations, a lot of kids that are relying so much on technology, that's great in a way, because that's really showing them that when they have kids and when they have generations, the children are going to teach them. You guys were really, really dedicated to technology, man. This is something that you guys were playing with so much, but didn't you know that you had all the capability to do this within yourselves? Each generation has a new phase in regards to itself. With us, we felt that we were very old school, right? We were very much into the physical hard work, and that a lot of the new generation is coming in, and it's the digital age, it's the internet age, and it feels like they want to get so much fame and so much fortune and so much popularity so fast. But even though if you're looking at that particular side of the coin, you're looking in regards to the love that they really have, and there is a deep love towards that. Even if there's a feeling that there are some, young kids that really want to go far in life, they couldn't think twice about leaving anybody behind, because there really is that type of love. So even though we're looking at one side of the coin that says, yeah, there's digital age, there's technology, there's people that want to get ahead so fast and not wanting to quote unquote pay their dues, but there is also a very, very strong degree of love, and that a lot of people really want to be able to offer something so incredible that may come with ease that really represents an effect of love on a collective level. And that really is something to see. And that we're going to see, again, their children and then their children's children starting to work together more in a spiritual incline, so that there is going to be that particular type of energy. Because now if you're looking that if we're reaching a breaking point where spiritual education is going to become mainstream, what's the next trend? Well, that's it. It's not technology, right? So that's basically where we're going. We're moving into that particular type of alignment where, humanity in its own equation is going to start eventually becoming a very deep spiritual culture as it becomes more mainstream in regards to understanding the nature of ourselves, relating to the state of empowerment, relating to exactly how we can go within ourselves and see exactly what's coming through. This is becoming very popular. I've been doing this work for 7 years now, and I have talked to thousands of people, and people don't even think that they have this ability, intuitively to do all this particular inner work. And I just start working, very basic exercises with a lot of them. And every single person I've talked to is psychic. Isn't that amazing, right? We all have the capability to do it, because all I basically do with them is give them very simple exercises. And again, I teach through the science of the simple, because this is how I learned. And I really developed myself with that, and still am to this very day. And that's really the whole connection here, is that when you start to work together with the science of the simple, and you work together with just simple little exercises, you're amazed at how intuitive you are. You're amazed about how deep a psychic connection you have within yourselves. You're amazed that when you give yourself 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes a day, how much everything just starts to transform, that everything is now starting to show itself a little bit more. And so this is really where we're going, is being able to look pertaining to the elements of spirituality. We're getting into that particular type of flow. And it really is just an amazing time. And this is our equation, that humanity is eventually going to become a very strong spiritual collective. We're going to be moving in that type of culture, because even though the West has taken a long time for it to grasp a lot of these particular forms of conceptions, that now, it's now starting to catch up with the East, and it will start to catch up with the East here as the years progress. So we have a lot to look forward to. So the human equation is all about the next step of graduation for the Earth body, that the Earth body is in that sense gaining new organs, and that as we start to develop ourselves, we're now actually starting to become the organs of the body that will allow Earth to transcend into different levels of consciousness, which means that we're becoming, more than just the idea of a standard Homo sapien. We're actually becoming human beings themselves, because now we're looking more so past the idea of a self. The self is what's known as a third density concept. If we're looking at third density, and if we're looking at the idea that self and ego is truly that particular type of transcendence, we're moving past that idea of the self. What comes next? Well, it comes into unity. It moves into unity-based consciousness. That there will eventually, again, within the next couple of generations, be more of a unified-based consciousness upon the planet. That we're moving more so into the idea that we're all connected, that we all understand interconnectedness. We're understanding more about what is available here and now. We're understanding more about how we're all connected to each other, about what love does. And, even the people who you may feel may be the most stubborn people on the planet, who never thought they would get this. I've talked to quite a few people like that who used to be like that, and now they're just so passionate about this. Any single person has the ability to make an incredible impact relating to when they understand themselves. And that it moves into the idea of self and others. It's not just the idea of the self, and it's not just the idea of the others. It's the idea where both of them are interweaving each other. It's not the idea where we're saying, I'm just going to go into the self path, and I'm just going to get all of this, and I'm going to get fame and glory and all of this, etc. Or that, it's not so much about me. I don't really care about myself too much anymore. I just got to make sure that everybody else is taken care of. Don't worry about me. Feel free to take advantage of me if you want, right? So that's basically looking at the two particular polarities. It's not about just a service to self. It's not about just a service to others. It's looking into that when I start looking into myself, I start naturally radiating energy that will become automatically service to others. That's how it works. It is the intertwining between the two. So that is really where we're headed as a new type of human equation when we come onto this planet. So again, this really represents the idea of the addition to the human equation. That yes, we're getting a new body. We're getting a new Earth body here. We're starting to develop ourselves a lot more because we have gone through centuries and centuries and centuries of extremes about telling us what we do not do, of what it is that we are not looking to experience relating to growth, and that we still have to go through that. We're still going through the transitional phase. It's no different than how a woman goes into transitional labor. It's the most intense time, right? So we're going through the same thing. We're moving into that particular type of transitional phase ourselves, and there will eventually be a point to where we will crown, right? And then we will emerge. And that really is the aspect to where we're going, to really looking into seeing that we are part of an Earth matrix, that we're seeing that there is unified consciousness, there is unity, there is connectivity, there is something so deeply within ourselves that are starting to come out. We are actually more evolved nowadays than we ever have been in the history of our planet. That's a very interesting thing to take into consideration. Nonetheless, that's what's happening. We're moving into such an incredible form of brilliance right now. We have over 7 billion people on this planet, and we have so many amazing people that have come here and showing new ideas, new innovations, developing themselves on such a deep spiritual level. And again, they've come from all over. But the good news now is that Earth herself has started to rearrange her filters, which means that free will is more based upon a little bit more of a bias towards the positive now. So, like many other particular forms of star systems and planets that have a filtration system that says, no, we don't want you here because you've been spending too much time in the lower realms, and we want to make sure that everybody that becomes part of our particular form of theme or stage here is actually moving into a higher vibration before they can come in. The same is now applying to Earth. So in the past, that surely was a free-for-all. It simply was the idea that no matter where you came from, you could certainly incarnate here and just experience the Earth experience, right? That's no longer the case anymore. We're actually moving into much more higher vibratory souls that are coming onto this planet. So if there was a person in that sense who was very, very deep into manipulating others, was filled with greed, a homicidal murderer, all this, and just really has spent a lot of times in the lower astral realms, they will not be able to incarnate again on the planet. That's just simply where we are. There's basically moving into such a love and light quotient pertaining to consciousness on a vibratory level that those particular people can't incarnate anymore. This is why, again, a lot of particular forms of people that, again, have looked into possession and looking into opposition and looking into maintaining an empire are scared to death of dying, because if they die, they will not be able to return to Earth, right? That's just simply because their energy is operating on such a low frequency that they are not compatible with the Q, as it were, that represents the incarnational experience. So they will have to go somewhere else. So this is why it's been such an incredible time upon the planet Earth. Filters have been stepped up. A lot of different beings that works together behind the scenes have been reintegrating a lot of the Earth grids. And that's why, again, we've been seeing like a lot of different sightings all across the planet. A lot of things are happening. There's a lot of beings working behind the scenes to help reinitialize the grids so that they are moving into a higher vibratory frequency, and we're able to align with these particular types of energies that represent this new paradigm, this new shift that's coming together. So that's the Earth experiment. This is where we're going. This is where we're moving ahead. And also with me being able to look into the Akashic records quite a lot, I have seen some really incredible timelines coming together. It's really been amazing being able to look and to see where humanity goes. It very much is looking into a unified consciousness. Transitional aspects won't be too far ahead, won't be along for too much longer. It's going to be really starting to take an impasse, as we start moving to 2020, 2030, 2040, 2050. 2050 will be almost in that sense, in a way of an analogy, like a new 2012. That basically represents the idea of the next benchmark. And when we move into 2050, that really is the peak of unified consciousness. That's really the peak to where a lot of the spiritual growth that we're having is going to become a lot more mainstream. But there's still a lot of work to do after that. But that really represents the benchmark into going to new places and becoming a little bit more stellar in that way. So again, a lot to look forward to. Okay, so we're going to go ahead now and go to the phones. We had one caller, but I think they hopped off. So I'm going to see if we can get it with this other caller here. We have area code 561. You're live with Rainbow Wisdom Radio. Hello. Area code 561. Are you there? Okay, guess we don't have anybody there. So. But anyways, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started with Adronis, as he's going to come through here and give a little bit more of his perspective pertaining to the Earth experiment. Once he is finished with his sharing, then we'll be checking the switchboard again to see if there's any more callers that would like to come in. Again, the guest call-in number is 347-215-8586. That's 347-215-8586. So if you'd like to call in and ask Adronis a question after he gives his sharing, then by all means feel free to call in. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Adronis in. It just takes a moment for me to connect with his energies. Again, he'll give a brief presentation on the Earth experiment, and then we'll be going to calls after that. So we'll be getting to calls here probably in about 10 to 15 minutes time. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and tune into his energies now. It just takes a moment or two, and we'll get started. Here we go. We are here at this time, and we bid you greetings, and thank you very much for the opportunity of this interaction today. I am Adronis of Sirius, sending love, appreciation, and gratitude to all who are tuning in to this particular broadcast being brought forward through your internet collective consciousness. What we would like all of you to do at this time is simply allow yourselves to get relaxed, get comfortable, and tune in to the vibrations of Sirius so that you may synchronize, harmonize, and align to all the information that we have to share. Also understand that all the information that we shall provide today is simply that of our perspective, our point of view. For all knowledge, all information, all creation itself resides within your very heart, being, and soul. We will give our particular perspective, as it were, relating to the idea of the Earth experiment. Now, again, much has been covered throughout this conduit pertaining to the idea of Earth herself. Now, Earth herself has had, in that sense, what you would know as precursor experiences prior to the time that humanity, in that sense, emerged upon her surface. That there were times in regards to, shall we say, the ripe points relating to the idea of third density intervention that came together that actually housed other particular forms of what you would know as extraterrestrial refugees that therefore began to colonize the planet. And that this was essentially necessary in regards to, shall we say, many different aspects pertaining into the idea of, shall we say, the ripeness of the planet, pertaining to the idea of the ripeness of the soil, the connectivity of the energies, working together in that sense, allowing many different forms of scientific equations to be conducted, allowing many different forms of climatic studies to be conducted, a lot of different forms in regards to the equilibrium between the current wildlife that exists upon your planet and other particular forms of sentient organisms that would represent the idea of a third density to fourth density nexus. And that these particular beings themselves did form particular colonies primarily underground, from what you would know as your subterranes, to where many of these particular forms of cities, as it were, or colonies were established. And again, much of this had to do with scientific work. Much of this had to do in regards to ecological balancing. Much of this also had to do in the idea of, shall we say, the supplementation pertaining to the energy lines of your own planet that you conventionally refer to as the ley lines of your world. And that many of these, in that sense, were basically being charted out, mapped out through the idea of anchoring vortexes that were therefore being scanned and, in that sense, surveyed by many of these particular parties. So therefore, other particular parties that came to this planet were all part of certain forms of experiments to allow, shall we say, the precursor development of planet Earth to therefore eventually house third density life forms than what you would know as your human race. Now understand that there have also been caretakers that still exist today that basically associate with 17 different extraterrestrial groups that exist on your planet here and now. And that these 17 different groups are often, in that sense, contained within certain forms of installations. They are contained within installations hidden deeply within your mountains. They are contained within installations hidden deeply within your caverns, within your subterranes. They are also hidden in installations in regards to your poles, your northern and southern poles, as well as your oceans. And that these particular forms of beings, as it were, represent the caretakers, the custodians, the gardeners of planet Earth in that way, working together diligently behind the scenes to assist in the further caretaking of essential formats pertaining to Earth's development that is continuing to this very day. Working together again, shall we say, with particular forms of grids, working together with energetic magnetics, working together in that sense of ecological balances from afar, completely out of human sight. And again, it is necessary because understand that planets are engineered. They are not, in that sense, just naturally popping out of the universe for no apparent reason. They are engineered. They are basically technology. But all planets themselves simply represent that of what you would know as organic spacecraft. But in that sense, they also represent an exotic quality. And that exotic quality in the universe truly represents the idea of natural biology, the idea of physical matter, the idea of life being sprung into physicality, into material, is in that sense something very ripe pertaining to the idea of interest in the idea of high value as it relates to the universal equation. And so this is primarily what has been happening upon your planet, shall we say, way before many of you have come along here. And that humanity, yes, was a particular type of addition to come here and assist in regards to the natural formation of the Earth to advance her body, to move herself up into equal levels. Now, certain forms of planets do not want, in that sense, particular forms of sentient beings from what you would know as self-beings on their world. Not all of them, but some of them are. So because they decide to work together in a certain form of equation or habitats that may only be first or second density compliant, and that through the idea of a third density intervention is often in that sense rare cases, more so in the idea to what can be attained through the permission of the collective complex of the planet in order for there to be, shall we say, sufficient synthetic material that has been in that sense collected through permissions of one planet through the idea of an adjacent form of third density or fourth density culture or even fifth density culture that wishes to utilize certain forms of biological specimens to therefore encapsulate and in that sense resynthesize DNA to therefore being brought upon other worlds. This is all expressed through the state of mutual permission in regards to collective intent. So again, there are certain forms of planets that do not wish to have third density life. And this can also represent the idea of what you may refer to as your exoplanets. There are, in that sense, certain forms of exoplanets, as it were, that may represent planets very similar to your Earth that do not house third density life. They are simply what you would refer to as habitats for first and second density integration. But again, it all depends. There are many different planets that have many different forms of varieties in relations to the conditions that they decide to do. Think of it very similar in the way that through your humans, many of you want to become sports players. You want to play in sports. You want to be very, very active. You want to really keep yourself in shape. That's the idea that you want to follow throughout this life. Then there are those who decide, no, I'm not going to be in sports. I'm going to follow more of the intellectual life. And that will follow the intellectualism as it continues to pursue through that entity's life. That's the similar form of principle pertaining to many planets. Some planets only want certain forms of life forms on their world, which may represent just that of elements, first density life. There are those in that sense who may want first and second density life, and there may be those that want first and second and third density life in regards to the equilibrium of how they see their bodies pertaining to their own evolutionary cycles. In that particular way, that is granted. Therefore, in regards to the state of permission from the entity complex, or through what you would know as many different forms of collective monadic decision-making processes to determine the cycles pertaining to, shall we say, how the planets within the star system adjuncted to the stars contained within all the galaxies allow themselves to function together in equilibrium. That is the basis in regards to, even though that there is differentiation, there truly is balance in regards to the differentiation uniquely. So this is our particular perspective, not only on the Earth experiment, but many other Earths or other planets that are somewhat similar to yours, or maybe even completely different to yours, that represent their own discretion pertaining to density-based life. So we thank you once again for the sharing. We will now return to the conduit and begin a question and answer period for all those who are tuning into this particular broadcast. So we now return to the conduit, and we thank you once again for your presence. Thank you. All right, guys, so we're going to go ahead and get some guests. Feel free to call in now if you guys would like to ask or join us a question, or if you just have any general questions in regards to what we're talking about on the show today, feel free to call in. Again, the guest number is 347-215-8586. That's 347-215-8586. Okay, so we're going to go ahead to our first caller and see if this first caller is on the air here. Okay, caller of 561 area code. You are live with Rainbow Wisdom Radio. Hello.
Hello, Brad. This is Gail, one of your students from the Psychic Academy. How are you?
Hello, Gail. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
It's just my pleasure to hear from you tonight. I'm listening and loving everything that I'm hearing. And my question to you would be, I have learned how to channel in your academy, and I have connected with a entity named Zabada, and I believe he's really in my energy field all the time now, and I just would like to ask, how could I better connect with him I've been talking to him all day, and I've been doing some resonant tuning, and since I have to wait until next week for class, I know that I could probably just contact you, but I figured I'd like to do it on air.
Okay, so you said the entity's name is Zabada?
Correct.
How do you spell it? Is that Z-A-B-A-D-A?
Yeah, I believe.
Okay.
I even
Googled
to see what information I could find out.
Well, yeah, it's quite a rare thing, especially a very rare name like that. Why don't I bring Adronis in, and he can give some more information pertaining to this entity for you. So I'll just be one moment as I tune to him.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
We thank you very much. Hello, Gail. We have received the idea that you are communicating with a particular entity that you would know as Zabada. This would refer to what you would know as an angelic consciousness. So the whole idea is what you would know as participating within an interaction with a non-physicalized being. Now, they do not come from any particular star. They do not come from any particular planet. They are what you would know as existing within, shall we say, the soul matrix, or what is often referred to as your own angelic realms. And so this would represent the particular being that holds the energy of an angelic consciousness. Now, have you been able to receive, through the idea of asking, a particular symbol that would represent his energy?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Have you received a particular symbol from this entity that may represent his energy?
I believe I've received several symbols, but I really haven't written them down. I guess that's what I ought to do. And I can.
All right, well,
connect.
here is one that we can particularly give you that may be very effective. And this would be what you would know as two particular halos. Now, there is one halo that is angled at what you would know as 45 degrees to the left. And that there is a second halo that is, again, angled at 45 degrees to the right. And that they are intersecting together through the middle. So we would like you to understand, very similar to how you would understand hula hoops on your planet, that through the idea of the middle or the nexus containing this particular form of symbol, very similar to how you would understand your own atom contained on your planet in regards to your perception of it. That one ring, in that sense, at 45 degrees left, another particular form of ring angled at 45 degrees right, are interconnecting at the center. This would be an appropriate form of symbol that you can therefore utilize to connect with Zabada further.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate your time, and blessings to you and this show.
We thank you very much. All right. Thank you very much, Gail. All right, so we've got a couple more callers that are coming through here. So I'm going to go ahead and move to the next caller. So if you guys do have a question for Adronis, or if you just have a question for the show, just feel free to mention that. And don't feel shy to, again, leave your name as well. Let's move on to area code 617. Area code 617, you're live on Rainbow Wisdom Radio. Hello.
Hello, Brad. This is Sergey.
Hi, Sergey.
Had a question to Adronis as well. I wonder if Adronis could comment a little further on where different races on Earth come from, like particular star systems, like you mentioned.
Sure.
So we have quite a few races
sounds
here.
Good. Sounds good. Very good question. I'll go ahead and bring Adronis in, and we can take a look deeper into this particular inquiry. One moment. We thank you once again, Sergey, and thank you very much for your interaction today. Again, many different forms of races occupy your Earth, as you would understand, the 17. Now, the 17 different extraterrestrial races that are not naturally born on your planet, that are walking on your planet in that sense, have certain forms of discretionary forms of rules in regards to, shall we say, where they may come from. But there, in that sense, are ones that originate from the star that we occupy, known as Sirius. There are ones that are from the star that you would know as Cassiopeia. There are other particular forms of stars contained within the Pleiades, several different races that occupy that particular structure in that sense of the, shall we say, constellation or star cluster, Taurus and the Pleiades. There are also those of what you would know as Andromedan. There are those in what you would know as Capella. There are many different forms of, shall we say, races that come in different ways. And again, it is what you would refer to as, in that way, a smorgasbord pertaining to many different races. Now, even for you humans, in regards to sojourns, you have been to many different places. There are, in that sense, in fact, other particular forms of souls that are recently incarnating that have been a part of your own star system as what you would know as first density, second density life formed, nexi. And so that they are therefore coming upon the planet as well. So basically, in a way of putting it, almost every particular star that you understand in your galaxy holds particular life, and that many of these particular stars hold certain forms of alliances. Now also understand that on your planet and in regards to Earth and in your own star system, the majority of the beings that are, shall we say, working behind the scenes in regards to an involvement on that level are humanoid in some form. This is simply because there is an association, there is a relationship between yourselves as humans and many of these other particular forms of, shall we say, humanoid star beings, and that they do represent other particular life forms that are similar to you in regards to humanoid archetype. So that there are, shall we say, other forms of races that will, in that sense, introduce themselves over time. But again, many of these races we do not even have names for specifically. Now, is there a particular race that you may be interested in that you would like to know more about should they be involved within the Earth experiment?
Well, I would probably like to know, just like if you look at the races that live on Earth right now, like particular bodies, like Africans and like black people, Caucasians,
yes,
and Asians.
Yes.
They have like different
yes.
features. I wonder if there's like any, like they come.
Well, they
certain
function
races
together with a wide band. They are a wide band of life. You understand that many of the African races, in that sense, operate within the star Procyon. They operate within the star of the Centaurs. They operate within the areas of what you would know as Cygnus as well. There are also others from what you would know as your native Indians, in that sense, that work together also in Procyon, that also connect within Sirius, that also connect within the Pleiades. Again, they all, shall we say, differently expand themselves in many different stars, depending, in that sense, the equilateral form of connection energetically in regards to their functions, and in that sense, the relationships with the planets. So again, many of your races upon your planets, in that sense, are not really confined to just one particular star, but in fact can be found through many.
Okay.
Your Asian, in that sense, would be, shall we say, one of the very first aspects of life that have been, shall we say, seeded from Lyra and in the Pleiades and in what you would know as the Setian constellation that have therefore come to Earth as well. So again, there are many different forms of expansive natures representing your subraces on your planet. All right.
Okay, thank you. And
we thank you very much.
I wonder, wanted to like also clarify a little bit. So, if I understand it correctly, there's probably also the races that live here on Earth. They're connected to other similar races energetically through like the genetic code.
Yes.
So like races, for example, like so-called like Africans that live here, the same races like in other star systems, energetically experience what other races, what like, for example, African races experience
that
here.
All depends in regards to the themes that they are going through. Again, understand that it all bases itself primarily in regards to the cyclic level of the planet, relating to its own initiatory phase to determine the, shall we say, scrutiny of the relationships in regards to those type of beings that it wishes to have, shall we say, incubated upon its surface. Now understand that there are many other different types of human beings besides what you would know as your core five that are beyond your world. There are beings that you would know that have green skin, that have blue skin, that have violet skin, etc. Many of these other different forms of beings that may even be in different forms of shapes and sizes, again, exist on other worlds as well. Again, this is where we feel that what you are leading to is more so looking into the equilibrium of the, shall we say, structures pertaining to the human race that would be appropriate to the planet's design, and this is therefore correct. So you have all different types of assemblements of different types of human beings that exist on other worlds that are all calibrated in regards to specifics. This may represent beings who in that sense are only 6 inches tall, that are occupying one particular form of planet. These may be beings that in that sense may have a head 3 times larger than your own and a smaller body. And therefore that represents the equilibrium pertaining to, shall we say, different ethnicities, as it were. So again, it all depends in regards to the ecological balance pertaining to energetics of the race itself, also determining in that sense what is appropriate relating to, shall we say, the overall equilibrium of the balance of the planet to sustain such third density life. All right?
Great. Thank you very much.
We thank you very much, Sergey. We will now return to the conduit. One moment. All right. Thank you very much, Sergey, for calling. All right, so we're getting a few more calls here. So again, really good questions so far, guys. Thank you so much. We're going to go now to area code 301. Area code 301, you're live with Rainbow Wisdom Radio. Hello.
Hello, Brad. This is Jason. That's impossible.
I'm attracting all the Psychic Academy students today. That's great. Hey,
yes,
Jason, how's it going?
The show's wonderful. Thank you very much. I do have a question, a general relevant question for Adonis, although you may be able to answer it. Certainly, you're obviously very informed.
Okay, what's your question?
My question is, I have interest in raising my consciousness, and I'm moving soon, and I have interest in living in a conscious-friendly area of the United States, potentially the Southwest, for example. What are the advantages of doing that, and, how does it maybe relate to Earth vortexes and maybe even Earth chakras? So, personal consciousness and vortexes and chakras, I guess, would be my question.
Okay, is there a certain area that you're living right now that you want to share?
Oh, well, I'm temporarily in the east, but I will be moving to the west. So I'm thinking Colorado, maybe Arizona, and is it truly advantageous? Are these areas, more friendly to raising one's consciousness, due to vortexes?
Okay, I see. Yeah, for sure. Okay, let me bring Adonis in, and he can provide some information on this one. We thank you once again, Jason, for the opportunity of your interaction, and thank you very much for your inquiry. The whole idea really is that, yes, there are certain forms of unique energetic centers contained within your Western hemisphere, as it were, your own Western territories, pertaining to that of what you would know as California, pertaining to that of what you would know as Colorado, pertaining to that of what you would know as Arizona. These all hold, shall we say, certain forms of vortices. However, it is all based upon the levels of implementation in regards to how you feel energy reacts to you to determine its medium in regards to its effectiveness, which basically means that as you start to dip your toe in the water of these certain locations, you will determine exactly the idea of the fundamental benefit that you will reap from it. So the whole idea is that there are many different forms of vortexes, even in the areas that you may not feel are conventional, pertaining to the idea of, shall we say, spiritual centers. And so the whole idea here is that even in your own East Coast, there are certain forms of vortexes that you can find very commonly through what you would refer to as holy ground, or shall we say in areas by rivers or areas by lakes in that way. So the whole idea here is it's not so much important about feeling that you need to go exactly where the energy is. It's more so important in looking into where your energy is guiding you to determine where the energy is that's appropriate for you. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It makes a lot of sense.
Yes. So the whole idea here is let your heart guide you into that way. We certainly do see you moving into the West Coast, but we do not really want to reveal the particular area that you may, in that sense, inhabit, as that would, shall we say, spoil the surprise. But again, looking into the West Coast and deciding exactly what areas you feel that you would like to dip your toe in the water to determine its functionality relating to the fundamental benefit of your own energy, to determine exactly where you feel you can call home. So let yourself have fun with this and experiment with certain areas just by taking trips, taking visits to other areas that you may feel you sense that you belong to in regards to that particular experiment, to that particular theme that you wish to govern yourself further and advance and expand exponentially with.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you for the informative answer, and I will do that. Can I ask sort of a related follow-up question?
You may.
Can you speak maybe about Earth chakras? I mean, I've read and heard a lot of things about Earth chakras. Can you speak about to what extent they actually exist, like on a Earth-wide global basis, and not?
It all depends in regards to, shall we say, the functionality of the ley lines in that sense. Now, understand that the Earth's chakra centers actually have the ability to move and actually have the ability to change. As your planet is moving in regards to, shall we say, a different form of fluctuation, the chakra centers in that sense can certainly align themselves into different forms of what you would know as conventional areas on your planet. So you may understand that, for example, Hawaii, which represents a heart chakra on your planet in that sense, may start to move in that sense like a particular form of current more further north that may represent, again, certain forms of energy that represents an expansion. And so think of it as a crown chakra or a heart chakra or a root chakra or sacral chakra that is starting to get brighter and brighter. And this is basically what we mean by moving, is it's not so much in the idea that the location in regards to the anchor point of the chakra center is moving, but it is more so the expansion of the energy in regards to how Earth herself is expanding that represents these chakra centers to where they can be felt in areas not felt before. So it is very similar to how one would illuminate, or shall we say supercharge, their own chakra centers together. So again, is there a certain form of area on your planet that you would like to look at pertaining to a chakra center?
Again, I was just curious, informationally about Earth. What about Mount Shasta, for example? I mean, I know I've heard before that is a relevant area vortex-wise. Does that happen?
This has often been referred to. Yes, this has often been referred to as your root chakra of your planet.
Okay. Well, excellent. That's what I was looking for, just some general information with respect to that second issue, and I do appreciate the advice on the first issue and the fact that you did not spoil the surprise. So
that's often what we do. So thank you very much once again for your inquiry. All right. Well, thank you very much, Jason, for calling in. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go to our next caller. We've got quite a few callers on the line, so I'm going to do everything we can to plow through them, so to speak. So we're going to go to our next caller here, area code 917. That's area code 917. You're live with Rainbow Wisdom Radio. Hello.
Hello, Brad. This is Rafael calling from New York. How are you doing?
Hi, Rafael. Doing good. Thank you.
My question is in regards to a dream I had a while ago, and I was reminded about it during a channeling practice I had recently. And it's about noticing what looked like spaceships during a break. It was in the evening during a break I had from work. I was out from a small building looking at these lights that looked like spaceships, moving in weird ways, like if they were fighting each other, but not necessarily. And then all of a sudden, it seemed like they were building or working in what appeared to be a grid. And then all of a sudden, these lights started to come closer and closer until they finally landed. But I realized when they landed, they were not actual spaceships, but people, humans, that were enclosed in a circle or a spheric holographic thing that dissipated when they landed. And my question is, I got, during the dream, like this is me in the dream, I got really afraid thinking it was an unknown force that was going to attack, but it didn't. And what happened instead was that while talking to one of those two humans that landed, one was a female that didn't talk to me, and then there was a male human that talked to me about it, but was talking to me like I knew what was going on, and I had no idea. And I had an impression that it was probably that I was going to be trained for some kind of battle, which scared me because as a pacifist is not what I'm into necessarily, but during the dream, I started recollecting that whatever I didn't understand is something I agree upon, and I just didn't remember. And I was being told to I remember exactly what was going on and what was going to happen to me. So I was just wondering if you could provide some insight in regard to that dream.
It feels like there's been kind of a connection with guides. That's kind of the impression I'm getting because, you and I have been working with channeling training quite a bit, and I feel that this is in that way some type of contact that's coming through in the dream plane, as I've talked about in our classrooms as well too. that when you start getting communications with other particular beings, whether they feel like they're extraterrestrial or they're just transforming into humans, etc., that these are just projections that are helping you to connect a lot more, but there's kind of like an essence into the projections from what I'm feeling here. So I feel like this is in that sense a type of guide contact, because I feel that you have had very strong connections with the ET presence, with extraterrestrial beings in that way. And it feels like it's a direct connection to kind of giving you the idea of a stimulation of calmness. And it feels like, again, it goes into an extreme of feeling, oh my goodness, there's these ships that are coming through, oh my God, they're landing. What's this going to turn into? Is this going to turn into some type of skirmish, or what's happening, right? And it turns out that these beings are actually communicating with you and talking to you. So it really feels like there is some type of connection, some type of communication with guides here. I do feel that there has been certain forms of extraterrestrial guides or star being guides, so to speak, that have been attempting to get a hold of you for some time. So I feel that this is kind of part of the practice that you've been getting into relating to channeling, of being able to connect with these particular guides now coming into dream state and kind of helping to appropriate you into certain forms of energetics and alignments. So it's kind of like they can appear in the dream and they may say something that's very cryptic, or they may say something that in that sense may not make sense right away, but it does feel like this is kind of like a direct connection, utilizing this particular theme for you to, in that sense, gain more of a calmness pertaining to such an event like this, where they came forward and communicated with you in this particular way. Does that make sense?
Yes. I do have a question in regards to the grid, which is something I'm trying to understand about planetary grids. And
grid,
specifically okay, yeah, in this dream where it seemed like it was a grid being built around Earth. Do you have any information you can share about grids?
Okay, so what you're asking is the grid that's around Earth, about how it was constructed?
No, the purpose. I'm trying to understand or have a better understanding about the purpose of grids.
Okay, well, let me bring Adronis in, and that's something we can talk about. I could probably answer it, but I think Adronis can give some really good perspective on it. I'll bring him through here just one moment. We thank you very much, Raphael, for the opportunity of this interaction, and thank you for your inquiry. The whole idea pertaining to what you would know as the energetic grids would be what you would consider to be the energetic perspective pertaining to the mind of the world. And that would basically be, in that sense, the particular type of understanding. It is, in that sense, its personal akasha. It is its own database, its own data banks, pertaining to, shall we say, all cycles of experience in which you would refer to as past, present, and future, that represent all these particular forms of energies that are, shall we say, anchoring in on specific areas of the planet on certain layers of being, from what you would know as your mental realms, your ethereal realms, your light realms, your astral realms, your physical realms, etc. And so all of these particular forms of mainframes that represent the grid itself is all determinate in regards to everything that is in association together with the singular collective mind in regards to all that which is upon the earth and the earth herself. So therefore, it represents the mind map, the grid pertaining to that of Earth.
Understood. Thank you.
We thank you very much. All right. So thank you very much, Raphael, for calling in today. All right. So we're going to go ahead and move on to our next caller here. Area code 514. 514, you are live with Rainbow Wisdom Radio. Hello.
Yes, hello.
Hello.
Yes, my name is Catalin.
Hi, how's it going?
Yeah, good. Good, how are you?
Very good. Got a question?
Good. Yeah, my question is how the changes that are following, how are these dependent on the alternative energy?
That's a good question. There definitely feels like there's a lot of momentum behind a lot of alternative energy systems. And really the way that it's going to start flowing, just from what I've received as well too, is that it's really going to move into a lot of the conventional alternative systems, like what we know as solar or wind or tidal wave, etc. And it's eventually going to move like, for certain cars, like into salt water, etc. It's kind of like we're taking baby steps in regards to the alternative energy stream. The only thing that really becomes effective in reality is when it has a very large majority trend behind it. A lot of what we are going through, like zero-point technology or Tesla technology in that sense, is starting to get a little bit more popular in certain ways. but it's still not at that level of what we would refer to as conventional. It's basically that when we move into the alternative energy systems, they have to be something that represents a very well-known practical alternative that can easily replace oil in certain ways. We're getting to those particular areas now, but it still just requires a little bit more, quote-unquote PR for it to really get into the mainstream and something that is really, really workable and functioning that can really house a collective level. So I feel that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be poking and prodding it a lot more in the next few years. It's of no surprise to me that when we really get into the next couple of generations, that a lot of what we're going to be running with may be like Tesla-inspired technology and really working more into that. But it's basically being able to kind of get, the PR, the mainstream, to get behind a lot of these particular forms of new energy systems and making that a practicality for us to use in the mainstream.
Okay, can this be, let's say, not invented but discovered and used individually?
Yeah, there are. Yeah, I mean, there are certainly some invented or discovered forms of technology. Like, again, there's certain forms of technologies that have been around for a long time. Even the ones that are recently being discovered have actually been kept under lock and key, through governmental forms of acquisition for many decades. So a lot of the stuff that's being newly discovered has actually been locked up for quite a long time. I don't think there's any shortage pertaining to alternative energy systems. But again, really to how we operate right now in the current trend, we're always looking for something that is quote unquote marketable or something that they feel would be able to kind of move into the trend of alternative service and reach into that point of mainstream until eventually that we've reached a state of maturity that it's no longer about profit for this. So this is basically going to take a few years, but again, a lot of things that have been discovered and some certain things that have been individually invented definitely have already existed. And it's just a matter about, again, doing the PR work to make this more mainstream altogether.
Okay, so we wait for the governments to do the step, or in
your own way, you do what you can. I think in the majority about what's going to happen in a lot of these new energy alternatives is that they're going to be people-powered. I feel that there's a lot more pertaining to something like crowdfunding or fundraising in certain ways to making these a lot more available. I think the time that if we try and wait for the governments, it's basically like trying to wait for hell to freeze over, right? So it's being able to really make certain forms of campaigns. And again, this is kind of where we're coming together for a unified consciousness, is being able to create certain campaigns on something that really has been demonstrated that people can really get behind and making it people-oriented so powerfully that no other person will have any other choice but to follow that through and make that something that is very feasible. So I think it's basically that the more the people start to get behind certain forms of alternative energy, the more that's going to come together. That's starting to happen more, but it's starting to need a little bit more of a push in order for that to come together. But I do see that coming together within the next few years.
Awesome. Just a little confirmation. There's an organization. It's called WITS.ws. Can you say something about that?
Sorry, what is it called?
It's WITS, WITTS .ws.
Okay, I haven't actually personally heard of the website. What does it entail?
So, can you elaborate a little bit, just a little bit?
Well, I haven't actually seen the website, so I wouldn't be able to elaborate because I don't have too much idea about what it is.
Okay.
What is WITS? Like, I haven't actually seen it. Yeah.
Well, they have some technology regarding energy, alternative energies. They have quite a few. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. There's always going to be a lot of different alternative technologies. Like, you're going to look at 0 point. You're looking at so many different types. But it's more so in the idea about a certain type of technology that a lot of people can get behind of and starting to make it happen. So if WITS, for example, has a technology that's really getting popular, then, that could be something that could really catapult.
Exactly, yeah. Good. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much for calling. Take care.
Thank you very much.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and move on to our next caller here, area code 704. Area code 704. You're on with Rainbow Wisdom Radio. Hello.
Hi, Brad. This is Ann Glasgow. How are you?
Hi, Ann. I'm doing good, man. So many Psychic Academy students today. It's great.
Yeah, I know.
How are you doing?
This is a good time for me. I'm good.
Good.
My question is about a client that I have seen for a few years. Just wondering where he came from. He's tall. He's about 6'5", big boned, very intense looking, and when he has strong emotions, he literally turns blue. There are times he is totally blue. I've asked him about his blood type, and I think he said it was AB negative, but he came to me because he had, it was almost like he was being possessed. There were a lot of beings coming through. His crown chakra was wide open, and they were actually manipulating him. And he's a corporate person, afraid he was going schizophrenic or so what. But I'm just curious as to, it's the first person I've seen that would turn that blue.
It feels like he's very new to the earth. That's kind of the impression I'm getting. He's very, very new here. He's really come in with some really phenomenal abilities. I feel he's kind of like an energy harvester in that sense. What I mean by that is it feels like he's trying to implement harmony to a lot of energies where he goes. So it feels like he has like really wide attention, like it expands very, very, deep, very broad, right? And it feels like there's a lot of these chords and all that. It feels like he can just sift through different forms of dimensions. And when he goes into these emotional states, yeah, exactly. When he goes into these emotional states, then basically what emotion does is it creates that high voltage, right? So as soon as you get into that high voltage, and that feeling of him actually turning blue is quite sensational. So I would just say that he would be, in that sense, an ultra-sensitive in the closest way of saying it, being one who is just really, really almost like a matrix himself. I guess that would be the best way of putting it. I'm kind of seeing like this orb with all of these kind of intricate patterns of particles flowing through and like very, very deep connectivity. So it wouldn't surprise me if he is actually a matrix himself.
Okay.
Do you know what
that
means when I say matrix?
Right?
He's actually helping to connect with many different souls that represent his personality. So he is, in that sense, a multi-soul personality individual, and he's actually able to channel people quite easily. So he's basically functioning as exactly. So he's functioning as working together, as many of these different forms of souls are kind of working alongside him, and he's becoming a matrix to basically bring harmony to areas. And he's a very great absorber, so kind of like a sponge in that way.
Well, the first time he came to me, we did the QHHT, and that's what he came for, because literally they were talking through him at work. He would have to clench his teeth, and he didn't know what was going on. But when we did the hypnosis, he really wasn't going under, but just instantly he channeled for 4 hours straight, and different groups came through. I was able to talk to many different groups, but none of them would actually tell me exactly who they were. They said they were kind of shackled to us. They had to help us move up in frequency so they could move on up. And it's not very pleasant. He doesn't want this to happen. We've had to work a lot to help them understand that they can't just totally run his physical body. He has to be able to control it himself. But but there's no...
Well, that's kind of the impression I'm getting, is just that he's very ultra-sensitive, and he's a matrix himself. And it's kind of similar to what I've gone through as well, too, because I feel like I speak on behalf of many different beings. Like, it's not just Adronis and Rayar and all that. It feels like there's many different beings that are behind me at the time. And it's kind of like it affects your personality as well, too. It affects your emotional states as well, too, because you're feeling kind of like an ambassador for many of these particular types of energies that are both seen and unseen. So I feel that that's really what he represents, the matrix.
Well, he does not want to do this. He doesn't want them doing it, and so it's a struggle. Is there any way that I can help him to understand things better?
This is basically what he's accepted. You can't really brush it away, right? So the whole idea is being able to help him with positive reinforcement that really brings about a benefit, and being able to see exactly what he's actually doing on behalf of his own energy that's helping the planet so much. None of us really want to be having these big responsibilities, but, he's been given these particular abilities for a reason. And again, like I said, I feel that this is actually his first life on the planet. And so he's come here to really just kind of, again, filter a lot of energies that have been running rampant for quite some time. So just being able to offer him a lot of encouragement and positive reinforcement altogether, I think will be the best that you can do. And just being able to really say, look at the rewards that you're giving by doing the service that you're doing. So really being able to encourage him in the service about what he's doing, because it feels like he's doing quite a bit.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ann, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Thank you for calling in. Okay, so we're going to get to our last caller. We basically got about 5 minutes left, so this caller may just have to be very quick with our question, but we'll see what we can do here. Okay, caller, area code 561. You're live with Rainbow Wisdom Radio. Hello.
Hi, Brad. This is Willanie, another proud member of your Psychic Academy. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Great. I have a question regarding channeling. Recently, I felt like I was able to channel a few times, and currently, or actually like last night, my husband played a transcript of Ra, and I felt a lot of vibrations in my third eye and crown chakra. Could you tell me if there is a possible chance that I may be able to reach the frequency to channel him too, or can you just get feelings like that in general when certain messages come through?
Once certain messages come through, it's kind of like going up a ladder, like we've talked about, right? So being able to really look into stepping up the ladder. And again, for some people who are tuning in saying, Brad, why are all your psychic classroom students calling in? Because we've been talking a lot about channeling this past week, and they've been making some really good benefits and good results relating to this. But it really comes down to the point that when you are climbing the ladder, more things will become available to you. It's kind of like when you're opening one door and then you see 10 other doors there, right? But before you went through that one door, all that was there was that one door. And sometimes you had to jimmy the lock a little bit, you needed to twist the key a little bit, and finally the timing was right for you to open the door and see other particular doors that are there. So giving it time, continuing just not to feel that I need to get to the next step. Don't worry about the next step. Be where you are right now and just allow the energy to guide you to see exactly the importance of now. And as you understand the importance of now, more energies will start to come through because you're moving more into the depth. When you're in the depth of the moment, then that's where opportunities come together rather than concerning too much about the next step.
Okay, I got you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for calling in, Willie. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, guys, we are out of time for today. So, wow, what a great first show. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for all the callers that have called in as well today as well. So the next time we're going to be on the air is going to be May 12th. So that's May 12th, starting on Tuesday, 5 p.m. Pacific. So I'll be taking some more calls at that time, and I'm kind of looking into a new topic today in regards to the next episode. Quite a few in mind, but stay tuned to Enlightenment Evolution Network for more updates. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in today. I really appreciate it. Really great first episode, and I look forward to speaking to you again next time. Take care. Namaste, and may it be well with you. Thank you for tuning in to Rainbow Wisdom Radio. Intro and outro theme, Spirals, performed by Angelina Bentley and the Cosmic Party. www.cosmicparty.com. Please continue to support the Enlightenment Evolution Network so that we may continue to provide original, educational, and inspirational programming. To donate to our network, please visit www.trebchanneling.com. Also, feel free to visit my website for private sessions, Akashic record readings, light circuitry, attunements, digital download courses, online classrooms, personal interaction with Adronis, and much more. www.realitywhisperer.com. Thank you for listening, and I will speak to you again next time on Rainbow Wisdom Radio. Namaste, and may it be well with you.